Hello and welcome to this video. We need to put creativity back at the heart of our educational systems, and that is what I am going to discuss on this video. The statement I've made runs counter to the way our education systems are working at the moment, and I think this is extremely dangerous for the future. Extremely dangerous not only for the skills we are trying to develop in our young people, but also for their mental health and well-being. I see this as a major problem. Those of you who know me for being some old bloke sat in front of a bunch of records talking about jazz fusion and prog may not know that I have been a music lecturer in FE and HE for around about 30 years. I've written courses and I've been involved in education in a wider areas, working through community arts and running my own community arts programs. So I think I've got some experience of this. Academically, my degree was in fine art. I was a painter. And in doing a degree in fine art, I found that when compared to music, a much greater emphasis is placed in art, in painting or in conceptual art, on the nature of the art itself, the creative aspects of the art, rather than, when I was at college at least, being taught ways to get a job. Okay, so I think there has an ideology has emerged which I think is false, and the ideology is that schools and colleges are there to train people into a job, that the job of the school is to train people to get a job, right? Now, I can challenge that quite simply by stating the fact that a school or a college or any educational institutions, its job is to educate the student. Right? Now, educating the student may well contain some skills that they may be able to use to get a job in the future, but I don't feel that that is the job of the school. So you probably say, well, what is the job? What do you mean by educate? Educate is to open up to a young person all the facts, knowledge, approaches, skills that human beings have amassed since the beginning of civilization. There is a great big lump of stuff which is what makes us as human beings, as a species, our species. It contains all sorts of different things, different philosophies, different approaches, different ways of thinking, facts about the world, facts about the universe, facts about ourselves. It's all sorts of stuff, right? And for somebody able to negotiate their life, they are going to need to have a sort of angle bearing on what makes us human beings. This is a much more fundamental and profound fact about education than just simply training someone to be a plumber. Okay? So I do not agree that our schools should be measured on the success of people getting jobs, because it denies a whole host of things that people should know. So, for example, I live here in the UK, and this video is going to be very UK centred because I'm a teacher that has taught in the UK, and some of the stuff I will be discussing will be relative to the UK, but I'm sure because these tendencies are apparent right across Western civilization at the moment, it may apply wider. But here in the UK, for example, this country, which at the moment is in a big argument about immigration, this country, of course, is a country of immigrants. Having the Romans coming in and invading, 2,000 years ago, and then 1,000 years later, the French, the Normans coming in. Now, I know that. I don't know much about it, but I know about it because I was taught it at school. I could tell you that, the Normans invaded in 1066. I know that fact. I know what they did when they came in and how authoritarian they were, how they well, they had this Doomsday Book, and the Doomsday Book sounds like a cool book to me, where they went round and they sort of measured absolutely everything and everybody across the whole country, basically, so they can find out what they now owned, this new conquered land, what do they actually own, and all this stuff I know because I was taught it at school. Now, my job, which has been a sort of professional musician and a teacher, knowing that, I can't see how that knowledge has ever helped me in my job. But I think it's worth teaching, and I think it's worth people to know that stuff. It's not like only people who want to do history should know that, and then these people should go forward and then get a job as a historian. This is preposterous. We educate our youth because we feel that there's things that are worth passing on. We're trying to pass on the combined knowledge, skills, philosophies of humanity to the next generation. So there's my argument. I think I've stated my case of where I see that. Now, this is a problem because politically, schools are being measured on their ability to teach skills that will get people jobs, right? We have a system here called Ofsted, and Ofsted will go in and measure schools and colleges. Ofsted then scores the school, and there's certain parameters within that score that if you do not pass them, you do not pass the whole thing. So if they go in and see an incredible school with incredible quality, incredibly happy students being educated, and it's all brilliant, but there is one aspect of the safeguarding, so someone hasn't kept some record somewhere, rather than it being a thing of saying, oh yeah, this is all brilliant, you just got to get that safeguarding, rather than going in and checking and finding something and putting it right, what it does, it will then, the whole measurement is then states that the school is in trouble, that there's a major problem here. That's what Ofsted then states. That one parameter then wipes the school out in terms of everything else. Now, last year, and it made the news here, what seems a very, very good and able head teacher did slip up on one minor safeguarding issue, and the shame and stress that was put upon her and her school because of that caused her to commit suicide. Okay, so that may now illustrate the next part of this discussion, which is the pressures that are on teachers at the moment. There are profound pressures on teachers, and a lot of that is coming from the measurement. There are the watchers, and the watchers are watching everything, and they're measuring everything, and as soon as you start to measure stuff, it changes the nature of that stuff. All right, if you decide to come up with an arbitrary number of how many students, what percentage of students will pass, right? If you say it should be 92% students should be passing this at this point in time, then that pushes the system to try and hit that 92%. And people will, under the pressure of their jobs, may start to bend the rules. Now, any teachers out there who are watching this may be looking down at the floor with a wry smile. Could that be the case, that teachers may every now and then bend the assessment rules just to make sure they hit that 92% because they don't want to be seen as getting into trouble? Okay? Because, and where does this come from? Where does this idea come from? This comes from blank slate theory. It comes from the idea that we're all blank slates and we can all be filled up with knowledge. And it's if you don't get filled up with the knowledge, it's not down to you not being intelligent enough or intellectual enough or not skilled enough. It's not down to that. It's the teacher's fault. And so you have a system in education where you have the teachers in the middle, right? Because of all this measurement, it's created a great big bureaucracy at the top. The management don't pull from people who are educationalists anymore. They pull from people who have a history of being able to measure stuff. Accountants, people who can, handle a spreadsheet, right? That's what you end up with in management. Not necessarily people who fundamental understand the epistemological and ontological structures that underpin education. Most managers wouldn't probably know what those two words meant. And I think that people should know what that means. Even though it might not enable you to get a job. I think you should know that if you're in education, right? And it should have been taught you in school. That skill should have been imparted in you. Okay? So, the measurement is changing the system. And in the middle of this big sandwich of students being pushed into something where they're having to have skills which will supposedly get them a job, all right? And then the bureaucracy on top, which is trying to measure everything, the people in the middle are getting squeezed are the teachers who here in the UK are leaving the profession in droves. Why? Because they came in to teach, not to assess. This is the next problem we have, is that the measurement, this idea of measuring stuff, has pushed a system where assessment, which is now being corrupted because of the measurement, as I described before, the assessment is going in and teachers are going, well, my job here is to teach how to be assessed. So those of you naively that think a teacher goes in and imparts knowledge to the class, right, all this different knowledge, and then at the end of the year, you may have a test which then says, let's see how much they know. So say I know about prog, right? You might put me through a test. Let's ask Andy 20 questions, you know. So what was the third album that Yes put out? So that would be the Yes album, right? Now, I've just pulled that from my knowledge of prog, okay? What's happening at the moment is you sit a student down and they will be told, right, in the exam you're going to be asked about, we think you're going to be asked about the Yes discography, so you need to learn that off by heart so you know it. And we think they're probably going to ask you which the third album is. So if you can remember that the third album by Yes was the Yes album, and they write that down and they memorise it. And if they can memorise that and then regurgitate it in the exam, that proves they have the knowledge. Right? But the ground's been set, the curriculum's been set. Nobody is teaching anymore fundamentally the reason why I have that information in. And the reason why I have that information is because I love the subject and because I've read so much about it and there is a great big mass of knowledge. So in other words, what I'm saying is if you've got a subject like this, I believe teachers should be teaching the fundamental core motivational aspect that leads the student to have that holistic knowledge, rather than saying this is the subject, the curriculum says we're going to do this, and on the exam it's probably going to be this. So we need to train them to regurgitate the answer. So if you are doing English and you're analysing Shakespeare, they're going to tell you what your analysis should be. Let that sink in, right? In an exam where you're having to write about the analysis of, say, art or whatever it is, you're going to have to come up with the answer that they want. And the teacher is not in there instilling your ability to analyse Shakespeare, but to be able, by rote, like a little robot, write stuff down that sounds like you have analysed Shakespeare. And those are the skills they are teaching, right? Now, on this channel here where we talk about creativity, I started off by saying that creativity should be at the heart of education, right? But before that, I had to really explain the sort of state of all this other stuff that's in there, right? Now, sorry about that, excuse me. If you then have got this system where you believe that a school should teach the skills that get you a job, and they should be measured through assessment in a certain specific way, where you have systems that are bending and corrupting the educational process as teachers just try and hit the numbers that they've been told they've got to hit, which means they will then teach a narrow part of what they expect will come up in the exam, right? And then that has to be prescriptive, it has to be a certain way because you will not pass, right? Then adding to that there has been another completely false idea that the way to get jobs is to learn about the STEM subjects: science, technology, engineering and maths, right? So that's what's happening now. What that is doing, it is now pushing the education systems to go to almost like a 1950s systems idea of education. So here in the UK, they're moving to two qualifications at post 16, A levels and T levels. And T levels are like technical levels, which are their vocational levels. And in the area where creativity was normally taught, those areas are being replaced by T levels. And because the sort of esoteric, ephemeral skills of creativity are not vocational in nature, the T-level structure is wiping out the creative subjects. All right. So currently in the UK, the progression, which has been falsely made out exists for a musician, is to do peripatetic teaching within schools and small music groups throughout the schools, and then once that student hits secondary school, we're going to secretly stop them from doing the music so they can focus on these STEM subjects, so they're going to figure that. We're not going to tell that. That is something that I know that head teachers here in the UK, right, and I've got nothing to back this up except for I've been told it's by people, are sort of pushing for at sort of 13, 14, once students start doing the STEM subjects, to calm down a little bit of the sort of music lessons, because it's not going to help them, is it, if they've learnt the clarinet or something. So at the end of that, when they're 16, the next progression would be to stay in schools and academically study music, which is to do an A level, right? Which means they're going to study around the subject of music, but the actual skill levels, and especially the creative aspects of music, do not fit into a sort of academic model. I spent my life teaching on the other side of that, which is the vocational end, but the old BTECs, those courses were not vocational. They were as much academic as vocational, and through the middle of that you were able to teach the creative aspects of music making, and in turn the creative aspects of being a creative person, which at the end of the video I'll finally arrive at why I think this is important. That has gone now, and now here in the UK they want to sort of put a baccalaureate structure onto education, and what that will do is, as I said, will take us back to a sort of system style of education, and by that I mean sort of a wider range of subjects being taught, narrowing down to certain skills that would be able to get you a job or take you down an academic route. All right. There is some belief, this comes from blank slate theory again, that everybody should be able to do a degree, and again the rules have been bent, so now a degree is probably worth what an O level was in the 1950s, because it's close to 50% of the population are going towards degree. I'm not too sure what it is, but it's a large percentage of people are going on to do that level of education. And once you get to 50%, the qualification can only be a pointer towards averageness. Think about it. If 50% of the population can get the qual, then that is, by a priori logical, rational, analysis, can only be measuring the average. It can only say that you are averagely as good. Because if you imagine a subject and you've got all the swathe of people from, that are awful at that thing to absolutely excellent, right? If 50% of them get the qualification, you are measuring everything from average knowledge through, okay? And this is made even worse, that if you were to set that at, say, GCSE level, O level here in the UK, which is the sort of end of school exam, then even if you were to do that, if you were then to say, this is how many people are going to get level 2, so it means this amount will get level 3, which means this amount will get a degree level, this amount will be master's level, this amount will be PhD. When you look at these, even on that, once you get to degree level, it shouldn't be the percentages that are now going off to do degrees, right? It's quite a complex thing to get your head around. I hope I've explained it well. But once you realise it, you really do realise how messed up the system is. And fundamentally, you've got to remember that all these qualifications are they're not real things. Semiotically, a qualification points to a knowledge and skill base. right? It should point to something. If you're an expert or you have knowledge on something, you should be able to grab that person and talk to them about that subject. It shouldn't be the fact that all they have done in that subject is jump through the hoops of assessment to make it appear like they know about it. Okay? Now, of course, in a society which is moving technologically towards a certain place, which is quite obvious to us, right? As social networking, computer technology, automation, and especially AI start to kick in, a lot of the skills that our system is putting so much emphasis on, those skills, which are quite low-level skills. You see, if you are teaching someone to pass a qualification by looking at what the exam's going to be, guessing what's going to be on the exam, and then training the person to do the exam, that is precisely what AI can do. Right? And AI can do it way better than some 16-year-old kid. And so the skills we're emphasizing can only end up being replaced by AI. Many jobs will be replaced by AI in the future. Now, a lot of that, when people say, oh no, there's an aspect of my job that could never be done by a computer, that may be true unless culturally we are moving to a place where those skills are actually changed, are actually adapted so AI can do them, because we see the skill in an AI way. The way AI work comes directly from the way we think education works. And why is that? Because what we do not do is put the emphasis on creativity. Creativity is the irrational, unconscious leap into the future. Right? It is the ability to create things out of the matter around us, the matter and the experience around us. This is what artists do. They take that and through a system which is quite mysterious, they open that out into a way which is so profoundly different to what went before. It enables human beings to advance forward. All right? Now, practically, here in the UK, if you were to look at the jobs, the skills, and all that are fundamentally creative based. So I don't just mean musicians and painters. I mean people who are designing adverts, who are coming up with promotional campaigns, people who are designing websites, all these types of things, right? If you were to add that up, though, that sector, the creative sectors here in the UK, I think it generates here around about 150 billion. Right? I'm pretty sure those are the areas that are going to exist in the future. We are probably moving to a society, and I'm only guessing, and here is a creative act. So this is the issue with creativity. This is the irrational bit that your education system can't really deal with. Is that I'm going to try and imagine what the future will be. That is a creative act. So I can envision a future where it is a lot more communist, because there won't be that many jobs to go round, but wealth will be generated, so it'll have to be distributed. Those of you who've got jobs, right, ask yourself what you really do. Right? And ask yourself whether what you do could be replaced by AI. Say you're a lawyer, or say you're an estate agent, right? Everything an estate agent does could be replaced by AI and a good social networking system. Okay? Post-industrial revolution, automation took away a lot of the jobs that used to drive the industrial revolution. Most people could leave school and go to a factory and get a job in a factory. We've now factored all that work out to the sort of third world, and we're paying people, near slave wages to do that stuff for us where it's required. But here in the West, how many people do you know that sit there on a factory floor, just doing the same repetitive task, over and over again? We didn't want to do it. We have spent our wealth so we don't have to do that. But what it has done is it's created a vast section of society that now exists on benefits. The section that would have just gone and got a job in a factory, that's gone, right? So that's what's going on. But the intellectual, educated, middle class elites who think they're something special, because they're a solicitor or whatever they do, your jobs are going to be replaced by AI. That is what I think. I could be wrong because I'm being creative here. But I believe your jobs will be and most people will not have jobs in the future. This was the 1950s dream of the future. The educational systems that we had in the 1950s, those forward-looking education systems that emerged after the Second World War, imagined a place where we will all be in silver suits living in high-rise, buildings, above the clouds, and no one would have to work before, because when you got up, some little robot would come out and make your breakfast for you, and then it would brush your teeth for you and all that type of stuff. That's what we wanted. That is what human beings imagined. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we didn't have to work? Well, guess what? Yeah, we don't anymore, but we don't know how to deal with that. And in the West, the Western people don't want to do that. That is why we have an immigration crisis here. That's why people are getting all upset because they're seeing people coming in. Because those people want to do the jobs that we don't want to do. Right? This is the malaise of the late post-industrial age. This is where we're at the moment. So, how do we deal with this with our education system? Well, we've got to undo a lot of the stuff that I've described. So firstly, we've got to get our head round that teaching STEM subjects may not be the best thing to do. We should teach them, but how about just teaching all the subjects equally and not putting a weighting on the STEM subjects? So let's bring art and music and all those creative things, let's bring them back into the curriculum and let's really champion them. I know politically, amongst a certain group, it doesn't seem like it's a good thing to have kids enjoying themselves doing creative stuff. They should be slogging their way through maths. But let's just bring it all back in. All right, and then if we're going to do that in the same way we employ mathematicians to teach maths, let's employ creative artists to teach art, creative musicians to teach music, right? Actually creative people to teach those subjects, all right? Now, to bring those in, you might have to change the system, but I don't want to get into that on this video. So that's the first thing. Second thing, assessments. Let's get rid of assessments. How are you going to do that? If you have good teachers, right, who are allowed now to teach, to educate, good teachers that know the subject, that can walk in a class and go, right, what are we going to do today? Let's talk about the birth of the blues, right? And then they can educate and motivate and open up the subject so the student can imagine the sort of historical context in which the blues was created and discuss that and start to explore it. So they have what I call a fundamental creative understanding of the subject, rather than having a list of blues artists and when they lived and what tunes they played, right? And let's have the teachers in that know that. Let's change the system so they can come in and let them work with the students and get to know the students. And this is now going to be so, what's the word? People will not like this. But let's scrap the exams. Let's scrap the exams and let the teacher decide the level of the student. I believe the most accurate assessment you will ever have is a teacher that's been in, say, that class with them for 2 years, turning around and saying, yeah, this person's sort of, they're average to pretty good, I would say C+, to use the sort of old systems, because we don't have that anymore. This person's absolutely excellent. Absolutely incredible. They're an incredible musician. I know they're dyslexic, so they don't write so well. But if you listen to them play and you listen to the great stuff behind them, they're really, really excellent. And if you wanted to employ this as an actual musician, this is the one I'd go for. The fact that they can't do the exam because they're dyslexic won't matter, because you're hiring them as a musician, so I'm going to give them an A. Right? Trust the teachers. Now, you want us to stop the teachers being corrupt and bending the rules? Get rid of these systems that say you should be, because of blank slate theory, which is not true, because of this false philosophy that we've based our system on, right? Let's just get rid of that, right? So there is no thing, because really, if you want to really make the system better, start failing some kids. And when you fail them, let's not make failure a bad thing. Let's see the school and the education as being a way of students sampling stuff. I fancy my hand on music. Oh, let's have a go at it. Oh, I failed. Why is that? I don't think music's for you. But me as a teacher is looking at it. I did notice that you were very good on the computer side of that when we were working on Logic and GarageBand in this class. So why don't you go over to move that computer course, which is now we've changed. It's a lot more creative based, because this is the next thing I want to get onto, right? When you start to teach creative subjects, at the moment, the education systems are trying to replace that with what they see as technological subjects. A lot of the people at the top that are making the decisions about this I don't think they understand the difference between creativity and, say, games design, or creativity and, say, virtual reality. And they think the thing is in the technology. This has really been seen, I found, in music colleges, where the music colleges are sort of measured on their ability to have up-to-date technological systems. We've got a Pro Tools system here and we teach that, so you'll be able to go out from here into the industry. And everybody knows that's not the case. Whatever technology you are taught on in any way, when you leave, that will have been replaced by another technological approach, the more advanced way of teaching it. When I started teaching, we were teaching 8-track, which was nothing like the big 32-track machines they had in real studios. We had an 8-track and a mixing desk and a bunch of outboard effects, right? And that's what we taught those students on. Those students that have now gone on to work in the industry are not using that. They are working on a Pro Tools system, and even the Pro Tools system is being replaced now. There was once a point where digital technologies were still the realm of the big recording studio. And the Pro Tools system was so advanced, and it had its own hard drive and all this stuff that went along with that enabled you to do all this really high power stuff that you couldn't do on your computer at home. But now you can on your computer at home. You can work on a laptop and do everything that Pro Tools did 20 years ago. Okay, so this idea that the answer's in the technology is not the case. Booting out, creative teachers to put in sort of technological computer sort of rooms where students can sit there themselves and study whatever system they put on there is not the same as having a really good teacher in there that understands creativity. But of course, how does a management that is trying to see the overall of this, where creativity is not being valued within that system, how would they ever know the difference between a creative teacher that knows about creativity and has an understanding of that and those who doesn't? Well, they could see how creative they've been, couldn't they? They could actually go and see whether this person has had an impact, has been able to create art which is actually good. Now this here fundamentally comes to the problem. If you are teaching creativity, you're going to have to measure how good their art is, and that's really difficult to do. I believe it's possible. It's possible because you have to accept the subjectiveness of that assessment. All right? And anyone on my channel will see that I have actually so many times explained quite a complex system I have of assessing, creative worth, which tries to bring at least some level of objectivity into the measurement without assuming that it is entirely objective. That has been one of the central sort of themes of this channel. Why? Because over 30 years, that's the system I developed to be able to measure the creative aspect of my students. Because without that, you start to teach creativity in the way we tending to do it, which is knowing about stuff, writing exams on it, and just being able to do things, right? So if you could mix a track with 8 channels of recording, 8 tracks of record, if you could mix it and use 3 effects and this and this, if you've done that, you get a big tick and you have passed that music technology exam. I'm actually, quoting actual criteria. The actual aesthetic quality of that recording. And by that I don't mean the sort of beautifulness of the actual mix. I'm on about what the thing means. Right? I have a friend who turned down the gig with Portishead in the early 90s because when he heard it, he thought, well, these guys don't know how to mix. It all sounds all, dull, and it's like loads of hiss on it, and it's all sort of, it's that. And that was the very aesthetic breakthrough of that band, and I don't blame my mate for not getting it because they were doing something creative. Okay, so that aspect of creativity, if I even now argue that we've got to place creativity at the heart, it's that aspect that we need to teach. Right? There is quite a large percentage, because of the way that our species, the way our humanity has developed to get to this point, we have got here and actually saved ourselves, like saved the species a number of times through the creative abilities of individuals within our species. And what that has done through a process of evolution, it has focused us as a species, so there is a high level of creativity in our species. And when I say creativity, I mean unconscious, left field, irrational thinking. Right? By charismatic people that can take these ideas which are profound and yet seem contrary to what the status quo is, but able to then, through the nature of art and their charisma, be able to instill these ideas as being good ideas. That is an incredible thing. And because that's so important, right? Because I think as human beings there are two fundamental things that we've got as a species. One is our ability to determine truth, and that's the realm of science. And science is a system that tries to create some sort of godlike objectivity, a God's eye view of the world, through taking our own subjective sort of phenomenological view out of the system and being able to see it in for what it actually is. And that is truth is really, really important. And now we've been able to elucidate truths. And truths are truths because they work. Because they're true, It's like once you have a truth and it is actually what happened, you notice that it works. And in that it means that you can then elucidate more truth based upon these fundamental truths. Okay? So I can't find my keys. Where are my keys? When did you last have them? Well, I came into the house, so if I came into the house, I must have had the keys when I came into the house. There's a truth. And from there we know it's in the house. And I haven't got them now, so I must have put them down when I came in. And the first time I walked into the kitchen, I wonder if they were in the kitchen. Go and have a look, there's your keys. Another truth. We can get all airy-fairy and talk about what is truth, and get all postmodern and smoke our postmodern pipe. But what actually is truth? Are the keys really on and in the kitchen? Yeah, they're in the kitchen. I went in there and I saw that they were in. I picked them up. That is the empirical aspect of science, and the rational aspect of science is thinking based upon the empirical facts you had already that could be there. That is science. That's an incredible breakthrough. Creativity is almost like the opposite of that. Creativity is this ability, and creativity is based upon aesthetics, which is based upon beauty. It's based upon the moral aspect of the universe. It's our division, not of the universe, not into truth and falsehood, but into beauty and ugliness. That's what creative people do, and they determine that. The most important thing is that we need to renegotiate what beauty is all the time. So great artists, great innovative artists are often fundamentally just going, see this ugly thing here. It's beautiful, isn't it, really? See this urinal that you normally wee into. In this way, it's beautiful. It's not beautiful in the way you thought, but it's beautiful in another way. That fundamentally is what creative people do. And because that is so important, we have a huge percentage of people that have that ability. In the same way there's a number of people that are very methodical and they are able to, and they have a desire to search out truth. If you're methodical and have a desire to determine truth, then you need to go down a science route, a technological route. But there's a whole bunch of other kids in our schools, and these are creative people. And creative people, they divide the world up into ugliness and beauty. Now, if they are not trained in the way that that methodical person is trained by the structure of science. If you then don't teach the very definite and philosophically accurate underpinnings of creativity, if you don't do that, then this creative person is not in control of their innate talent to be able to determine beauty and ugliness. And often, then that ability, which is like just a raw power within them, will turn in on themselves, creating mental health issues. It's so important that with our young people that we fundamentally get them being creative. And when you are creative, that challenges the sort of moral aspect of the imagining of ourself, which is based on one in self-loathing and in the other aspect in conformity. And this really becomes apparent when people become teenagers. Self-loathing and conformity often drives the majority of mental health issues within young people. And so the ability to stand up and go, see this painting here that I've done, that there, that's me, that is, and I don't care. Yeah, but it looks so ugly and weird. But it's ugly and weird in a way that I quite like, as though this person's renegotiating what the very nature of beauty is. Right? The renegotiation of the very nature of what beauty is, that is fundamentally what we all need to do as human beings for ourselves, for our family, for the people we love. That is a fundamental skill that will not get you a job, but needs to be taught in the schools, needs to be taught in the colleges, and it needs to be taught by people who understand the nature of creativity. It needs to, and this is a difficult thing. You need highly skilled teachers with an understanding not only of the creative practices, the skills that enable you to be creative, because they are definite skills that you have to be taught, right? Even though those skills will change in the future in the same way technologically that will change in the future. So you need to have someone who can take that on board. But fundamentally, they have to understand the philosophical underpinnings of creativity. Anyone who comes on my channel will see that I have discussed in detail the philosophical underpinnings of creativity. I'm not saying I'm right, because this is fundamentally it's a discussion. It's a discussion that we must have, and the only way we can have a discussion is by people listening, right, and putting away their ideological prejudices that they have, right, which will want to label that person with whatever evil label is apparent in the culture today, which would be like being a rapist, paedophile, far-right Nazi. They're the ones, you know. So I had an interesting thing yesterday, because last Philosophy Sunday I did a video where it was called the 10 most evil musicians ranked, and I didn't do it. And my videos often have the content of the video, and then because of my sort of fine art background, because of the old Marcel Duchamp, you know, urinal in the exhibition thing that is in my system becoming art training, there's an underlying meaning behind it. And I don't mind saying it after the event, but I won't say it in the actual video itself, because I like people to come here and watch all the videos and start to realise that there's sort of like Frank Zappa conceptual continuity that runs through. But on that, I don't know whether I did it accurately, but I wanted there to not be 10. There was no list. I had no idea. It was that I duped the audience. I'd used a clickbaity title to illuminate how clickbaity titles work, and how we can actually use a clickbaity title to bring people in. And rather than doing them bad, we can actually use that to talk about something that could be quite useful, right? But I'm pretty sure that I only did 9. I definitely did 8 or 9, but there was a space left. So who was the most evil musician? It was me. And that's the conceit, you know, the fact that I duped the person there, and people in the comments got it. Some of them's got it and said, "Oh, you're the most evil one, Andy," and you know, because you're the dupe to see in the first place. And I enjoyed that. It was a little, you know, trying to make a little point that people could go away and think about. Go, well, that's quite interesting. And then someone messaged me and they said, "I've just tried to share this video on Facebook, and Facebook have took it down because they've said it's misleading." Yeah, it is. It is misleading. That was the whole point. These AI systems, these sort of systems-based systems, these sort of criteria that cannot help but embed ideologies in to them, will come on the way. I was chuffed to be cancelled. I thought, oh, it's brilliant, I've been cancelled, brilliant. So a video that is artistically, and it is artistically, my videos are not philosophy, I'm an artist, I'm a creative person. The videos themselves, if I'm here talking to you, I may be saying what I think is the truth. Sometimes I might be saying the total opposite. Sometimes I might be confused. Sometimes I might contradict myself. Right? I see my videos as being like a jazz musician. They're like jazz. I come in and just talk, and whatever happens, happens. And then when they're over, I go, we'll watch them again and go, well, that's quite interesting. That was a load of rubbish when you said that, but that bit was quite interesting. And I build upon it. And then, 500 videos later, I'm building a sort of, it's not like a book. It's not a Bible. This is a sort of, because YouTube is not like that. YouTube is this bubbly, frothy thing that's thrown out all these mad stuff and you get involved in it. So nobody can come to my channel and get an overview now of what I'm doing because there's just too much stuff here. And that's part of it. And all these things are part of it. And my experience as a creative person using YouTube for the last 2 years, I would love to get out and teach that to creative people. And I have people now asking me and talking to me about YouTube and Instagram and all these social networks. How do they work? What is the creative thing that those are conducive towards? Because I tell you something, they're not conducive towards music, right? Creatively, that short poems, which is basically Twitter, is far more conducive to that and art. It could be a lot easier for an artist to get their stuff out there than it is for a musician. And musicians need to know that. This is the stuff that you need to teach. And you teach that by going into a room with the kids and bringing it up as a discussion so they can see the fundamental, this is what I mean by the fundamental aspects of creativity. And they can start to talk to their way through and take that and move it around in their mind until they start to get a fundamental understanding. Once they have a fundamental understanding, the facts and all that type of stuff that the assessment wants to measure, that will naturally come in. But their facts will be different because if a subject's worth teaching, it will be too big that any one person will know all of it. So when you're teaching a subject, especially a creative subject, the student will only ever have their knowledge of it. So I'm here on this channel, I talk about prog and I talk about jazz, classic rock, I talk about jazz fusion. I don't go talking about like modern pop music and I don't go talking about reggae because I haven't got as much knowledge. And those styles are incredible. But I have a specific knowledge base and I am able to, with that specific knowledge base, to open up my career. This is what I've done, right? If I had a test and the curriculum was going to test me on reggae and modern pop music, I would fail that. And the teacher would come out and say, come on, Andy, now you've got to learn by rote the answers. So here's 10 pop artists. They're probably going to come up, get as much knowledge as you can. And they're probably going to ask you, what Taylor Swift's third album was. Not Yes. So forget the Yes. This is what is wrong with education. The whole thing is wrong. And because of that, it's hemorrhaging the good teachers. Right? They're losing them at the moment. And fundamentally, if it needs to be solved, if it wants to be solved, what we're going to do is we're going to have to put creativity back at the heart of education. Right? And here comes the big rub. This means you're going to have to let highly creative, irrational people who have a less of a respect for systems and measurement and have a much deeper respect for like the irrational and the creative, weirdness and surreality of the world. You're going to have to put them into positions of power. Right? And if you've got a system that is evolved so the people who are in there are just come from a completely different place, how are they going to be able to recognise that and bring these people forth? In other words, if you went into schools and you measured the head teachers in that school, the people who'd run the schools, how many of them have come from a creative background? And by that, I don't mean that somebody who did a degree in music history and then they did a B.Ed and then got a job. I'm on about were actually creative and made creative stuff. So they know about it, because that's the only way you can know about it. He's making creative stuff. I've still got a bit of a cold, which is why I've got my big coat on. That was my Philosophy Sunday video on why creativity should be put at the heart of education, which is what it's going to be called. If you liked this video, then put a like on it. If you want to see more stuff like this, then please subscribe. I do 4 videos a week, at least 4, right? This is the Henry Ford, post-industrial, third world factory here, right here. Yeah, we're looking at it right now. 4 videos a week I do, without fail. 4 videos a week. Right, that's why I have no editing, that's why I don't have any special effects. That's why I can't have a more high quality camera, because the files come off too big and computers take so long. I haven't got the time, I can't turn around to get the videos up. That's what I'm doing here, 4 videos a week. So if you want to really come on this journey with me and get involved, then subscribe. And it is a journey, and people are getting involved. And people are coming over to my Patreon. The link is down below. They're becoming patrons. And yesterday I had someone join Patreon, a guy called Lucas. And he went on high tier. And then that means he gets to have a chat. And so he comes on, we have a chat about music. It's really interesting, but I find that the guy's an economist. And we had a long conversation, which has sort of, in a way, motivated me to do this video. Now, if you go to my Patreon, you will see that my patrons are directly involved in the nature of what I'm doing here. But they're also indirectly involved like that. And we actually talked about a new education system, which is a lot more based around this, where you're attracting, by putting out this sort of creative stuff that I'm doing, attracting people around you that are then able to get involved in an educational system which is not assessment based. I'm not doing any tests for my patrons, but I hope they're learning something and I'm learning something from them. You're right. And I think this is a profound thing. So if you do want to become a patron, then the link is down below there. If you don't want to become a patron, because you do have a proper job and it hasn't been replaced by AI yet, so you can't waste time on stuff like that, but you still want to support me, especially if you have a really high paid job and you've got a bit of spare cash, so where could I put that would be good? Then you can put it into my PayPal, YouTube tip jar, which the link's down below. People are regularly doing that, and I thank everybody who's done that. I can't tell you how moved, and I don't want to go through everybody shouting their names. I might do this at some point, everyone who has done that, I might do that, but I'm not sure whether I should do that or whether I'm allowed to do that, just say random names. I don't know anyway, but that is greatly appreciated and is really helping me at the moment. What else can I say? I think I've said everything I can say. I had something bubbling away in my mind then, and it's gone. It's just gone. My channel, more than anything, is really about a middle-aged bloke trying to remember stuff and not being able to do it. My videos are just one long middle-aged moment of walking into a room and not knowing why you walked in there. That's basically what you're watching all the time, and that's what's just happened. I had something I wanted to say then. Isn't it frustrating when that happens, when you've got something to say and you forget what it is? It was really, really important. I bet if I remember it won't be important. It just feels like it's important, right? These sort of psychological things, the way human beings work, that's a moral thing that happens there, is that you feel like you wanted to say something, but the conversation goes somewhere else, and then you can't remember it. And the reason you can't remember it because it's no longer relevant, it's not important. But the moral side of you goes, yes, but it is important and I wanted to say it. And that is the aspect, that is what is going on fundamentally in our education system, where people are holding on ideologically to ideas because the thought of changing them is too horrendous. And the worst thing our education system could do at the moment is put into action what I've just described on this video. Because one of the big problems is that teachers have been hammered by this change and that change, because it's, education has become the political football that's been booted about. And here in the UK, when the Tories go next year, because they will have to go, and Labour come in, I imagine this has always been the case, because I sort of really benefited from the Tony Blair government coming in the late 90s. I set up a community arts programme, and there was funding to reach young people, and I benefited off that. And I'm hoping that will happen again if Labour get in again, and hoping that they will value that it is worthwhile reaching normal people. And that is what I was going to say, because this is the conversation I had with this economist guy. One of the biggest crimes is the left have forsaken the real underprivileged people in the world. That I feel that identity politics has become, the mantra of the educated middle class, which absolves them of their privilege, and they can shout that as much as they can, whilst we are really not reaching the underprivileged, that we demonise, the chavs. We demonise them here in the UK by calling them chavs, which is an honourable and wonderful word that comes from the Romany language, which is a Romany word for a young boy. And we've taken that, and the idea of the youth, the male youth, as being something which is a pollutant, which is something which is evil, that we have to control. All right? We have now here in the UK come up with this term chavs. And we don't believe that those chavs should have an access to creativity. The creativity will be looked after by the middle class educated elite. And if anyone shouts that that's what's going on, we'll go, no, but look at these black people and these gay people and these trans people and these non-binary people. Look how we are helping them. We have the funding for them, and every single one that's been helped on the whole is not an underprivileged person. They're only underprivileged if you accept the idea that underprivilege is being a member of some arbitrary identity group. In many cases, being a member of that identity group is the fact that you are where you are, and that I'm not saying that's not the case. So don't get all upset, right? And start boosting the algorithm that will get me cancelled, right? They are, but it would be much simpler than to just use the blanket term underprivileged. And what does underprivileged mean? It means being poor. That's as simple as it is. Being poor, being at the bottom of the pile and not having any agency to be creative, because you don't have access to the things that make you creative, right? And the way you change that is by having a school system where the access to creativity exists in the schools. So don't take it off the curriculum, you bunch of educational middle class elitist idiots. Don't take it off. What the hell are you doing? Right? You know that a bunch of rich kids will be able to make the next album and the next film and the next documentary, and they'll be able to get the jobs in PR, and they'll be able to come up with the next advertising campaigns. They're there. All the nice rich kids that can choose the job they want because they have the abilities to access the means by doing it. Right, and we know that, but what we'll have is an art system that is the voice, the subconscious voice of a middle class educated elite. Right, does anyone get this? We have to put it back on the correct. We have to let the normal work. I'm not rich. I'm a poor person. I'm talking about myself. I am not some guy that is arguing. I am poor. Anyone who watches my channel knows I'm poor. Right, I'm poor. Okay. It's got nothing to do with your educational background or anything like that. There's poor people, but there is an elite there that have been able to maintain their position. Oh, I'm sounding all left-wing and Marxist now. And this is the thing, I'm an artist. One moment I will be shouting for what seems like the sort of, individual libertarian things, the bit that I think we can value. And other times I will get all Marxist like this and start trying to, champion the underprivileged. Right? I am both of those things. Right? I am a contradiction. I'm an artist. That's what artists do. They expose that contradiction and then turn it into something. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not talking truth here. Right? I'm creating videos that you watch that I hope are entertaining, and in there they give you a feeling and you walk away from it. And I've got all angry now, and those of you who like watching me rant and get to that point, that was what was wrong with this video. There was no anger, there was no rant. This is emotional. I'm angry. Oh, I'm so bloody angry. I am genuinely angry. But from that sort of management, middle class, elite that's holding on to their positions at any cost. The bastards. The bastards. That's what they are. Right? And it needs to be challenged. And the way you do it is you allow young people to say what they think. You allow them to express how they feel. You do not measure it, right? You do not sit them in exam. And you do this because you have the philosophical understanding to realise the value of letting them do this in terms of their own mental health and in terms of the future of mankind, you idiotic moron. Oh, I've got a lot of pent-up anger, I have. It's a terrible thing. But I'm going to go in the house. I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I'm going to take my tablets, have a nice cup of coffee, and I feel that this video has reached the emotional climax, and I hope anyone watching it will see the right smile which was underneath that. Don't think for the moment that I was really that angry, but the anger is there. It's there. It's an aesthetic tool. What did the great English poet John Lydon say? Anger is an energy. Anger is an energy. Anger is an energy.